I'm Leonard Jason from the Psychology Department at DePaul University. We're really excited to participate in this 10th anniversary celebration of the College of Science and Health. Today, you're going to hear about 4 programs that are master's focused. And let me say that these programs actually started in late 1980s. And one of the programs actually started over the last year. So over the last 40 or so years, we've had steady new growth of these master's programs. We hope that this is helpful to you. And with that, I'm going to turn things over to Jerry Cleland, who's going to talk about the General Master's Program.
Thanks, Lenny. Let me spend a little time and talk about the Master of Science in General Psychology. This program has been going now for actually 24 years, which is kind of surprising. It was created in 1995 during the 1995-96 academic year by 2 faculty members in our department, George Michel and Joe Ferrari. Joe Ferrari likes to be referred to as Deacon Joe Ferrari. It was created to enroll DePaul undergraduates at its inception, outstanding graduates who really weren't sure if they wanted to go the full PhD route, or maybe they didn't quite have enough experience in research labs to get into national PhD programs. So it started for those reasons. And it is set up to prepare students either to go into doctoral programs or to prepare them for research-based employment. And the way this is done is it provides hands-on research experience with research active faculty, more on that in a minute. And also the coursework that's required is very intensive with statistics courses and research methods courses. One of the other things that is interesting about this is that there are no master's only courses in this program, that people admitted to the MS in General Psychology program sit in the same courses as all the doctoral students do. So when we accept students into this program, we accept them when tenure track faculty agree to mentor them in research and agree to be their professional mentors as well. In the first year this program started in 1997, 2 students were accepted, and the program has sort of slowly grown ever since. In 2000, 3 years later, there were 20 applicants. Remember that this was designed really for DePaul students, but in 3 years, the majority of students actually were applying from outside of DePaul to get into this program. As you probably can imagine, the number of applicants kind of waxes and wanes over the years. But this year, there were actually 76 applicants, not just from outside of DePaul, but from across this country and from various countries around the world, including China, India, Kuwait, Lebanon, and Nigeria. We have applicants every year, international applicants to this program. So it's really grown both in size and in visibility over the years. And one of the reasons is because we are really quite a selective program. We take about 5 to 10 students a year. It depends on the availability of tenure track faculty to mentor these students. And it also depends on the skills and aspirations of the applicants. Whether this is a good or a bad thing, I don't know, but every year we have extraordinary applicants, but they want to do something and get into a career that the mentoring faculty aren't doing in their labs. So we really can't bring them in because we don't have a place to put them, even though their qualifications are superb. So 5 to 10 per year is pretty common. So I told you a little bit about this, that these students who come in are immediately connected with a research active faculty member. So they start immediately. Most of them who will be accepted this year will be talking with the faculty over the summer. They will start off in the fall already knowing the faculty and the other graduate students in the lab. To complete the degree requires 12 courses. We're on a quarter system here, so that means 2 courses per quarter for 2 years. Of these 12 courses, 8 are required. I told you that they're kind of statistics and research intensive. They also are required to take core courses in developmental, cognitive, and social. They're required to take a physiological course and required to take a diversity course. Students can take 3 electives. The most common electives these days seem to be courses in the College of Computer Science, where they learn programming courses to go along with some of their research interests. And they'll end up with a thesis or a capstone project. For those who want to go into PhD programs, typically they will do a thesis. I said earlier that they take the same courses as doctoral students. Students in our program are held to the same standards. They come in with very strong academic backgrounds. And if you ask faculty who are teaching in various classes which students are doctoral students and which are MS students, they have no idea most of the time. They just don't really know who is who. Over the 24 years, we have admitted over 100 students. Most of them have gone on to doctoral programs. The ones who haven't, almost all of them have completed their master's degree. They came in thinking they wanted to go to a PhD program, but you know, life kind of sometimes takes us all in different directions. So some of them just say, you know, I think I'm just going to stop at the master's and I'm gonna go and work for some research group is typically where people go. But here's some of the universities that have taken our students. This is only a very, very small list of those. And finally, even though this program has been in existence for 24 years. There have only been 4 directors of this program over that entire time. I talked about the first 2. Dr. Kim Quinn was the director for 3 years, and then I've been the director since 2016. So that's a quick look at the MS in General Psychology program. I don't know, we didn't really decide if people want to ask questions about this now or if we want to just go through all of them and then ask questions at the end.
Jerry, I think that, and by the way, thank you very much for this excellent overview. Maybe what we'll do is we'll hear from Olya Glansman concerning the new master's program in community psychology. And once we go through all the presentations, we'll have some questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Sounds great to me. Okay, let me turn my mic off.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Olya Glansman, and I'm one of the co-directors of this MS in Community Psychology program. What's unique about this program is that it's brand new. It was created in 2019 by Drs. Leonard Jason, Jerry Cleveland, and Olya Glansman. All 3 of us are here today. And we have admitted our first cohort this past fall 2020. Obviously, it was a very unusual beginning to those students. So in addition to navigating their first year of graduate program, you know, settling into graduate school, they were also navigating the pandemic. And so we're extremely proud of this group. Historically, it is designed for students who are interested in working within communities, and their goal is to affect changes that enhance opportunities for all members, and with this particular focus on the most vulnerable. So this is a great place for this program, being at DePaul, considering Vincentian values. What we do hope that students get out with are hands-on experiences in the program, as well as applied statistical and research trainings. And it's important, again, to know that this program is rooted in the values of the field of community psychology, which include social justice, empowerment, collaboration, asset-based approach, ecological perspective, among others. Obviously, the slide on growth is relatively small just because we had our first cohort in 2020, but we already saw a slight increase in the number of applications. Last year, we received 16 applications and we have accepted 6 students. This year, we have received 25 applications. Majority of those are from outside of DePaul. In terms of academics, students are set to complete 12 courses, 2 courses per quarter for 2 years. 8 of those are required, 2 electives, and a year-long fieldwork course. Courses are designed to train applied practitioners. So majority of our students are not set to go on into the PhD program, although some are possibly considering it. And some examples of the courses that we provide are advanced community psychology, program evaluation, consultation, and applied research methods.
Thank you so much, Olya Glatzman. Now we're going to switch to another program, actually the oldest BA/MS program, not only in Psych department, but at DePaul. So it's my honor to introduce Jane Halpert.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jane Halpert. I'm the director of the IO Psychology program, which includes this one. We call it the 5-year program or the BA/MS program. This was the first combined bachelor's and master's program that there ever was at DePaul. We started it back in the late 1980s. The intention was, and still is, to provide a way to go for people who wanted a career in industrial and organizational psychology, who wanted to go beyond a BA in their education, but really did not want to go all the way into an MA PhD program. So we were looking for people who wanted to earn a master's degree and work in the field at that level. It's a small program. In a given year, we usually get anywhere from 2 to 4 applications. We usually accept 2 or 3 of them. Over the years, 30 to 40 students, because many people who have strong qualifications actually do want a PhD. And so I wind up talking them out of this program and into a doctoral program, which probably isn't good for our program, but it works much better for them. The goal is to get them where they need to be. For those who really do want a master's, it's a good way to go. It allows you to do a 4-year BA degree and a 2-year MS degree, Master of Science degree, and get those all done in only 5 years instead of the normal 6. People who want to explore this option, absolutely, you should talk to a faculty member in the IO area and do it as soon as possible, ideally by the middle of sophomore year. If you don't think about this or don't discover it until later on, come talk to us anyway. We can give you lots more information. The required classes are a little different than those for the BA with a concentration in IO psychology. And so we need to make sure you're getting the stuff you need. Additionally, this requires that you take 3 additional undergraduate classes during those first 3 years. Normally, 4 classes a quarter would bring you to 36 for the end of your junior year. But this program requires 39. And the reason is that in years 4 and 5, when you're taking graduate classes, you can't take more than 3 classes. So we need you to get 3 additional classes in years 1 through 3, so that at the end of the year 4, you've got enough credits to get the bachelor's degree. We also look for a minimum of 3.2 as a grade point average. So what can you do with a master's degree? Well, lots of stuff. You can work in a business from small up to pretty large. You can do things like selecting employees, surveying employees, developing training systems, lots and lots of stuff. You can work for a consulting firm, which would put you working with clients of the consulting firm who come to the firm seeking some sort of help, which means instead of working for one company, you'd be working over time for a number of different companies. And some people find that really interesting. Government agencies, okay? You can work for county government or state or city government or the federal government. You can work for various sections of the US military as a civilian employee. You don't have to join the military, but you can work as a civilian. You can work for a research and data collection firm. Pretty much the only thing you can't do with a master's degree is teach and do research in a college or university. For doing that, you really do need the PhD. but lots of positions in the applied sector are going to be wide open to you. So what next? How do you proceed if you're interested in this? First is take Psych 380. It's the Intro to IO Psych class if you haven't already done that. The idea of this is for you to get a good picture of what the field of IO Psych is. Lots of intro Psych classes don't talk about IO, so often people aren't really clear on what IO is. The idea is for you to get a good picture of it so you can decide if that's a direction you want to go in. You can also go into the course catalog. We've got several pages that look at the information about the program. Talk to an IO faculty member. We can give you lots more details, and we can help you decide if this is going to be a good program for you or if you would be better off going in a different direction. We've got 5 IO faculty members: Dr. Ella Stuhlmacher, who's also chair of the Psych department, me, Dr. Ravala, Dr. Bell, and Dr. Abbott, who is working with us as an assistant faculty member.
Thank you so much, Jane. Now we're going to hear from our last speaker concerning the next program, which is also BAMS, presented by Olga Glansman.
Hello again. So a bit of the history of the program. Similar to our MS program, the BAMS 5-year program is also in its first cohort with 7 students set to graduate next spring. The intention is to provide students who are interested in learning more about community psychology and get trained to get a career in the field, who want to go beyond a BA, but are not at this point interested in continuing to a PhD program. This is a good place for those who want to work in a variety of community, government, and consulting work settings. And at the root of it all is social justice orientation. So this is a great program for students who have a social justice orientation. So if you want to explore this, we encourage students who want to continue in this program to talk to one of the program co-directors as soon as possible, because you will need to take Psych 354 before spring of your junior year. Luckily, Introduction to Community Psychology, Psych 354 is offered twice every quarter. So there's plenty of opportunity to take that. And this would be a great way to get introduced to the field and see if you're interested. In winter of your junior year, you will need to be accepted into the community psychology concentration and begin taking the required courses. So again, there is that first milestone. And then as you start the program, start the concentration, if you are interested in continuing into the 5-year program, you will apply in the spring of your junior year into the program. And you will take 3 graduate level courses in your senior year. So this is a quite accelerated program for our students. And then in the last year of your graduate career, you will be taking 3 courses per quarter, as well as a field work. What can you do with masters? Thank you, Jane. I think you've explained it very well in terms of the sky's the limit in terms of what you want to do, except perhaps if you really want to get on a tenure track and teach at a university, you can do anything that you want. You can join a consulting firm, a non-for-profit, work in a non-for-profit sector, at a government agency at different levels, a research firm if you're interested in research, program development evaluation agency is a good place, as well as any community organization. How would you proceed? Again, we already mentioned, you need to take Psych 354, which is Introduction to Community Psychology. If you haven't taken that yet, make sure you put it on your schedule. And the goal is for you to see if this is, in fact, a good career path for you, or if you're interested in the field. Course catalog is great because you will be able to see which courses are required in order to graduate with the BAMS. as well as you are always welcome to email or meet with me to learn more about the program. Those who have talked to me know that I love talking about the program, so don't hesitate to contact me. And then in the winter of your junior year, make sure that you apply to the concentration, because this is the only way to continue into the program is to be first accepted into the community psychology concentration.
Thank you so much, Olya, and our other people, Jane and Jerry. You now have a little bit of an overview of 4 very exciting programs for those of you who want to have a master's degree at DePaul University. And we now have time to throw things open to the audience. If anybody might have a question about DePaul University, some of the Vincentian values that underlie these programs. And as you know, in our psychology department, we focus on teaching, research, and service. So we do all 3 in our programs. And that's very special for our urban university, particularly in these days. So would anybody like to start off by asking a general question of our master's programs, a specific question about one of the programs, or really anything else about DePaul University?
Hi, I had a question about if organizational psychology and community psychology overlap, because I'm interested in both, but I'm not exactly sure which one I'm fully invested in yet. So I kind of wanted to understand if they overlap, because both are very interesting.
It's very interesting that at the University of Illinois at Chicago, for many years, they actually had a combined program. So there is a precedent for doing something like that, but thank you for that question. It's very interesting. I'm gonna throw things to maybe if Jane feels comfortable in handling that, but if not, we can bounce it around with other people. Jane?
Sure. There are some ways in which IO and community are similar, and some ways in which the programs are very different. For example, in IO, you get no training, 0 training whatsoever in things like counseling, working with individuals. When we work with a company, our client is usually the company, not the individual employee. Okay, although we do work with employees, we're focused on the company because it's the company that hires us and the company that pays us and the company that asks us to do things for them. So unlike community sorts of programs, we don't do individual diagnosis or counseling or work with individual people in the same way that a clinical or counseling program might do. In terms of working in the field, in both community and IO, you can work in a lot of different organizations. The focus on community-based and social justice-based organizations is going to come from the community part of this. Now, both programs, community and IO, do include room for a couple of electives. And often you can focus on one and take electives in the other to spread out your competencies. Olya?
Sure. Yeah, so there are similarities. My dissertation actually included measures from IO because I looked at job satisfaction among community psychology faculty at universities. So there are some overlaps in terms of kind of the type of population you are working with, or maybe the type of measures you're using, that, you know, the type of interest that you have. And some of the classes, I definitely agree that you can take that are across and can provide you and train you to work in similar settings. I guess the biggest difference might be the community psychology is really value focused. And so there is a social justice orientation, kind of preventative perspective, working with those on the margin. So that might be different. So if you're more interested in working in communities or providing services, alleviating some kind of suffering or bringing about positive change, then community psychology may be a better fit for you. But I would encourage you to take, if you haven't yet, introduction to both of those, because you will benefit from both perspectives, even if you don't continue with one or the other. And then kind of seeing what fits best in terms of what do you want to get trained in, who is the population that you're going to be serving, what type of services do you see yourself providing, and hopefully that will make it a little clearer.
That was a really terrific question. So thank you for that, Ria. Oh yeah, go on, Jerry.
So if I could jump in for just a second. I mean, one of the things I noticed that crosses all of these master's programs is you heard both Jane and Olya talk about database, research-based. All of our programs are trained in that. That's why these are MS programs, Master in Science, because we really do have an emphasis on data collection and data analysis. It's just for depending upon what your interest, your area of interest happens to be. So keep that in mind when you're looking into these programs, I think.
And it's interesting, Jerry and Jane and all you, that I've actually been on panels at conventions where there have been organizational psychologists and community psychologists actually talking about some comparable issues from different points of view. I vividly remember kind of a panel dealing with the psychological sense of community, and some people had measures of how to measure the sense of community in organizations and community settings. And we were discussing kind of the differences that we were finding with different scales and different focuses. So yeah, I think there's lots of compatibilities between these two groups. And I remember when the industrial organizational program at DePaul came to DePaul, and this was in the early 1980s. And I thought it was a great addition to the whole psychology department because they really bring a good methods and quantitative perspective to our graduate programs. So, I think our psych department was really enriched when we created those programs, both at the doctoral, master's, and undergraduate level. Good. Would there be any other questions that people from our audience might have at this point?
I had one question. So I had to step out for the community psychology presentation. So is there a minimum requirement for the cumulative GPA?
That's a good question. I'm gonna kick it to actually Jerry to explain a little bit about the history of kind of how the program was created.
So what we look for in students is potential. We look for students probably who have a grade point somewhere between, Jane talked about 3.2, 3.5, but we also look at how have you done in your last couple of years? Do you have a good trajectory? How have you done in your upper level psychology courses, especially because we're a psychology program and because graduate school is really kind of taking upper level psychology courses, if you will. So we look at a whole host of things. We also look at, have you, especially for the community programs, do you have a real interest in some part of community research or some area of community service, somehow that you have this passion that will bring you into this program and will keep your interest alive and going well. So we always look for people with higher grade points, I think, but there's other ways that if that's not the case, we'll sure take a look and we'll try and make sure that we do our best to get passionate people in, especially if you're on an upward trajectory. It's not uncommon that people start out college not being too interested in having at best mediocre grade points. But if things start to take off and if it looks like there's a good trajectory, we'll certainly take a serious look.
So you look at the last 2 years, correct?
Well, I think we'll look overall, but the last 2 years are probably more important, especially if there's a big jump in grades, and especially if things have gone particularly well, then I think it can matter a lot. And we'll look at letters of recommendation. We'll look at the people that you've worked with. I mean, it's not just grade point based. We're looking kind of at a whole person, we hope, to see kind of what the big picture is and how you're going to fit in with what the goals of our program are.
I think I would throw in also that, as I think as all of us have said, that students in these programs do not take separate classes that are designed just for master's students. They're in the same classes with the MA PhD students, which means they need to be able to function at that level. Okay, and so we are, if you're not familiar with any graduate students yet, when you do that, you'll discover that there's a lot more to graduate classes than undergraduate classes. There's a lot heavier workload. And so we want to make sure before we throw you into that you're gonna swim and not sink. And so GPA, as others have said, is only one piece of it. Okay, it's a number, but it's only one number.
And thank you for that, Jane and Jerry and Olya. And I can just let you know that, you know, the faculty here are happy to, you know, give you some guidance and sit down and chat with you and, you know, give you their thoughts as to what's the best way to prepare. And I might say that if one person applies 1 year and maybe doesn't get in, that's okay, because one can be stronger the next year and get credentials to be effective. So, you know, it's a career path. It's the, you know, just be patient, and ultimately those who gather the right credentials and experiences are going to be very successful. And we're here to try to help that process. Nora, did you have any other questions on the line, or are you okay?
No, I'm okay. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Okay, thank you. Good. Well, we'll open things up for any other questions from our viewership.
I had one more question about community psychology, if that's all right.
Sure.
So my question was, generally, so it's mostly, it could be any community, right? I'm guessing it would be any community. And then on top of that, I'm guessing there's probably a lot of use of statistics in community psychology. Is that true?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So in community psychology, we define community very broadly. In classes, you know, the way we introduce this is we asking students to think of stereotypically what comes to your mind when you think of a community, and many of them say, my neighborhood, this is where I grew up, for example. We are defining it as any group that has any kind of linkage, connection, or anything like value-based, or anything that connects individuals. And so what you define as a community of interest, again, can be very, very broad. And so we're preparing essentially students to work with diverse groups and understand the diversity within those groups, within those communities. So it's not that you necessarily are prepared to work with one community over another. We do hope that students develop a specific interest in maybe in population or area of interest, and that way you can be you know, better prepared to work with a particular community. But again, that may change from year to year, locality. So if you travel after graduation, that, you know, similar community may be quite different in another location. So we're trying to keep it broad. And we do strive ourselves, we're very proud as a field to root everything that we do in empirically in research. So we do ask our students to first take as many statistics and research methods courses as they can on an undergraduate level. But then you have at least 2 statistics courses and an applied research methodology course at least. And then students, of course, can take more as electives. But we do stress research and evaluation as essential parts of everything that community psychologists do. We want to again, ground everything in research? So that's a good question. And the answer is yes.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you guys very much. These have been very thorough answers. So thank you very much.
Good. And thank you for your question. Good. We'll look around to see if any other questions we have from our audience.
Yes, I have a question. I have a quick question. I'm actually taking community psychology right now, which I am enjoying. But my question is for a transfer student. I know it's certain deadlines and everything, but how does that fit for a transfer student coming in from a different school? As far as the deadlines per se.
So you're thinking about the combined program?
Yeah, well, I don't know which one will be more feasible. I mean, I believe the combined will be better because I want to go all the way to as far as I can. But that's
well. As you hear me in class, sometimes when I talk about community psychology, I say that my favorite answer is it depends. So I wish there was one answer that I could, that I can give you right now, but it really does depend on individual circumstances. Of course, we want as many students to join our program as possible. There are some prerequisites, and for example, taking intro to community psychology before you apply or as you apply into the program, but there's a course that you need to take in your junior standing. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, some students take it as I think like super sophomores, or you can take it as you begin your senior year, but it's offered once a year, and it's an advanced community psychology course. So my recommendation is, I would love to talk to you. We can also invite Liz Jackson on the call, who is your academic advisor if you're a psychology major, and we can plan it all out and see how that looks specifically for you. And so I'm happy to answer it, on an individual basis for students. But around junior year, this is when you need to declare your concentration in community psychology and start taking the courses. And then there are 2 courses that are field work, fall and winter of your senior year. So as long as we can fit that in, you should be fine. But again, just in anybody too, feel free to shoot me an email, and I'm more than happy to meet individually.
Okay, thank you.
I think the one thing you can see very clearly, Drew, is that, we just want to be helpful with whatever questions that might come up, not just now, but anytime. We've got a wealth of experience and interest in trying to really give you the best responses and answers we can. Jerry, did you want to say something?
Yeah, a couple of things. Drew, I think that's a great question. I do think it's a little more complicated with transfer students. The path isn't quite as direct, but it depends on the courses. And you can imagine different transfer students coming to DePaul bring in different coursework and bring in different experiences. So it's kind of hard to give a direct answer, but just know that we'll sit down and we'll look at what you got and we'll try and figure out kind of what the best direction might be for you. And it may be that for a particular case, it doesn't make sense to do the 5-year, that if you want the MS, you're just going to have to go to the standalone 2-year MS program. But, we can go through and we can look at those things and we can help you figure that out. The reason I turned this on though, this may be for Olia. Jasmine posted a question. I'd like to pursue a PhD in community psych, but haven't been in a lab. Would you strongly recommend getting research experience before applying? And maybe Lenny, you could answer that as well too.
Sure. Yeah, Jasmine, I think that's an excellent question. And thank you for posting that. And I do encourage, yourself and others to, in your undergraduate studies or post-undergraduate studies, to, connect up with a faculty member. There's lots of faculty members who have ongoing labs, and they're often very open, receptive to bringing on volunteers. And I might add that if one particular lab isn't available because they just don't have any openings, it's likely that there'll be another one that will be open. So I think the key thing is to try to get some experience. And you could contact them by sending them an email, or Psych has like a listing of different programs that are available. That's another way of doing it. So yeah, I would strongly encourage you to do that. In terms of volunteering, each lab, it might be a little bit different. Some labs might want you for kind of smaller amount of time, other labs a little bit more. So you can get that clarified when you contact the lab. But of course, if you have a particular interest in an area, you know, that might be a good way of just looking at the faculty who are doing research in that area. So then you can be a little bit more specific, but truthfully, even if it's not in your direct interest, there's so many things that you can learn by doing research in terms of the methods and what it's like to approach questions from a psychological and research point of view, that there's a tremendous amount of learning that can occur for you being in the lab and watching other people. Some of the labs will have other graduate students, maybe doctoral level students in them, and then you can see what that's like, and you can get mentoring from these types of people who are in programs that you might ultimately want to get into in the future. So there's all types of excellent advantages to you know, reaching out. It's a risk, you know, it's not easy to do some of this stuff, but I think these types of risk taking and, you know, just extending yourself a little bit by reaching out, I think is a really good idea.
I definitely agree with that. For any PhD program, any admissions committee would be looking for involvement in the lab and looking at how much experience you have had with research. So that's always a great idea. Everything that Dr. Jason said, I think is, you know, spot on. I would also add that at DePaul, we have great opportunities to get involved, not just because we have so many fantastic, and because you mentioned community, we have community, clinical community, and other faculty who are doing research that is similar to what a community psychologist will do. So you get a chance to kind of pick from various labs. And other opportunities are taking it for credit. So you can join for 2 or 4 credit independent studies. And so you'll get credit while you're in the lab. And plus of being in the lab is you can potentially you know, work on a manuscript, you can add to a conference presentation, networking is big, and mentorship is, as Dr. Jason is saying, so you are working with both undergraduate students, graduate students, as well as faculty members who can point you in the right direction. So there's really no drawbacks, just benefits of doing that. And one of the ways that we encourage it in the concentration, community concentration, is our students are involved in a 2-quarter fieldwork course. And for that course, you get to pick your own setting. So you can go into any type of internship that you're interested in. And it is a spectrum. And we tell students, if you're considering a PhD program, definitely get as much research experience as possible. Join a lab. Unless a student says, you know, I'm already in the lab, I have so much experience, I want to work for a non-for-profit. Then we encourage you to go to a not-for-profit arena. But that's another opportunity. So for 2 quarters, you can join the research lab and use it for your fieldwork course requirement, which is also satisfying your experiential learning credit. Again, so much that can be said, but all positive about doing as much research as possible while you're still an undergraduate student.
So these were really terrific questions. And this was a great exchange. I always try to, toward the end of things, just make sure if anybody in the audience had something that they wanted to say, or a question, or if anybody on the panel had anything they wanted to add, I want to just give a little space for any last reflections that anybody either in the audience or our panel might have as we begin to come to this session and end.
The one thing I could say is that as you reflect on this, and if you have more questions, all you got to do is go to the psychology department webpage. You know who the 4 of us are now who are presenting. So make sure that you get in contact with us if you have more questions or would like to continue this conversation, maybe more personally or in a less public context. But that's, as program directors, that's what we do, is we kind of help people, steer them, help them make decisions about these kinds of things.
And hopefully by now you've seen we're super passionate about our program. So we love talking about them. We would love to guide students. So yeah, just, you know, let us know and we'll answer any questions that may come up after you leave the presentation.
Good. We're approaching about 45 minutes, and that's kind of what we thought we would do this session for. So it's perfect timing. I just want to thank the panel members for their excellent kind of glimpses of what these programs are like. So thank you, Jerry and Jane and Oya. Those were really, I learned something just by listening. So thank you. I also want to thank the Dean for the idea of this 10 years celebration of the college. I might add that the first dean of the college is actually on the panel, Jerry Cleland. We owe him a tremendous amount of help and appreciation for all he did to get the college going 10 years ago. So he really did a masterful job with you know, difficult times starting things off. And I also, you know, besides the dean, I want to thank Susan McMahon, who really was spearheading many of these events through the college. And she has had a very spectacular career at DePaul. So we appreciate all she's doing in the dean's office now. And also I want to thank Molly Brown for, you know, the terrific work she has done at the Psych department to really pull this together, a week of celebrations. And thank you, Molly, for your help on all the different things you've done. So on behalf of the psychology department, I just want to thank you all for taking time today to hear from us. And we are available should you have any other questions. And best of luck in your graduate careers. And if we can do anything in the future, do let us know. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lenny, for doing such a good job of emceeing here. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming to join us.
Thank you.
Thank you.